question is foreign policy expert and political analyst Barry Nussbaum and RNC national spokesperson Paris Dennard. Thank you both for joining me this afternoon. So let's jump right in. Barry, you're up first. We'll start with you. President Biden set out a goal to change the perception of America and how it's viewed on the world stage following former President Donald Trump, his predecessor. Did he accomplish that today, or is it too soon to tell?
I think that was the perfect first question. And on that issue, Biden did a great job. He spoke for an extended period of time, reading the prompter that obviously he didn't fill with a speech. Somebody else wrote a good one for him. But he said virtually nothing that people would get upset about. He was nice guy, Uncle Joe, and I'm going to skip every problem the world has with the exception of climate. And when I address climate, I'll do it in such a way that no one's going to argue with me. Same thing on COVID. Who is against solving the COVID crisis? The rest, platitudes and really nice themes. And when you walk away from the speech, you might shake your head. I'm not sure what I just heard, but it sounded okay, I think.
All right, Paris, we know that there's some trouble in paradise, especially considering the fact this whole France deal and the blowback that it's getting from that. What was your reaction to the president's speech?
My reaction was the president's rhetoric didn't match reality. He talked about COVID-19, but didn't hold China accountable from the world stage there at the UN. He talked about humanitarian issues, but failed to talk about the fact that the Taliban, as we speak right now, is attacking women and Christians. He didn't talk about the fact that we have a humanitarian crisis right now at the southern border with people coming over from Central America and Mexico. And when you talk about humanitarian issues, there's been a lot of people upset with the seemingly treatment of Haitian illegal immigrants that have come over, migrants that have come over here. That does not seem to be the same as the treatment to other migrants that have come over. And that is a human rights issue that people are talking about that I've seen. The rhetoric versus reality. And here, when you talk about world affairs and global leaders, you had a wonderful relationship with France and President Trump. President Trump was invited to Bastille Day. The first, one of the first state dinners that the president had was with President and Mrs. Macron. And now France is so upset with the United States and Joe Biden's deal that he made with Australia that he pulled the United States ambassador. Boris Johnson from the Great Britain, the prime minister, tried to get a hold of President Biden for 36 hours. And for 36 hours, President Biden ignored his calls during the botched Afghanistan withdrawal, not to mention the fact that the Biden administration botched a drone deal, a drone attack that led to civilians being killed, 7 children, not the 2 terrorists that they claim to have killed, children. So on a foreign policy stage at this UN speech, his rhetoric didn't match the reality that the global leaders see and that the American people see, and they are looking for the leadership that we had with President Trump.
All right, Paris holding the president's feet to the fire. Barry, America wants to continue to be the anchor of the world. Are we? Didn't we lose that to China?
Wow. Right on. Great question. And you are correct. I think the important takeaway from the speech today is not that it sounded okay, even though we didn't know what it said, is, as your other guest mentioned, all the issues that he skipped over. Iran is racing to build nuclear weapons and long-range missiles to deliver them. Didn't get mentioned. The Abraham Accords, the most dramatic peace and trade agreement in 70 years, skipped over. China has a massive expansion in their military and trade aggression around the world, no mention. Our borders are out of control. Immigration across the world is flooding borders as if there is no sovereignty, not mentioned. As Nikki Haley, our brilliant former ambassador, said this morning, under the Trump administration, the world knew where we stood. At the UN, she said, we took the names of our enemies and they had the back of our allies. Joe Biden is platitudes, but skipping the issues. For example, as he said, you blow up a lot of civilians, you claim it's terrorists, you get caught, you don't say anything. You abandon your allies in Afghanistan, and I mean 100 countries at various times were there. Hundreds of billions of dollars in equipment were left. It's as if the Taliban is not slaughtering people in the street, men, women, and children, especially the Christians they can find. No mention. I think this speech is more importantly to be looked at as what didn't Joe Biden say versus what Joe Biden did say. On a socialist basis, it sounds like the world is getting ready for massive amounts of American cash to flow everywhere. He wants to vaccinate the world, even though the third world, they don't want the vaccines because their infection rate is almost nothing. But hundreds of millions of doses are going out, and they're going to be paid for by your and my tax dollars.
All right, Barry, I think some folks would disagree with you on that. But gentlemen, we got to wrap, but I want to get your final word. So I ask if you can keep your responses brief. What's at stake here for everyday Americans if America is diminishing on the world stage?
I would tell you that we have to have policies that put the American people first. And we had that under President Trump working with congressional Republicans, and we have to have that again. Our RNC chairwoman, Ronna McDaniel, has already called for Secretary Blinken to be fired for his dereliction of duty that he had in Afghanistan. But it's all these issues abroad impact everyday Americans, especially those in the Black community, disproportionately. So we have to hold them accountable.
All right, Barry, your response.
I agree with everything he just said, and I would like to add, we need a leader who leads from the front. Not somebody that the world is making fun of for the reason that he doesn't seem to be able to articulate and doesn't seem to be able to engender any kind of confidence. We need the man to step up or step aside, because so far I'm not seeing leadership that I, as an American, am confident in.
All right, step up or step aside. I guess that brings me to my last question. Approval ratings. He's not doing well. It's probably one of the lowest ratings he's had since his 8 months in office. So here's the deal. How can he, President Biden, expect the world would get behind him if his own country is losing faith in him? Paris, what's your response to that?
My response is simply this. President Biden is losing the faith and the trust in the American people. And his actions on a foreign policy level, when it looks at what he did in Afghanistan, the situation with France, the deals what's going on with Iran, China, they don't have respect for him. There was a time when the U.S. was leading when it came to Middle East peace. Now Egypt brokered the deal with Hamas and Israel when it came to Middle East peace there. The American people are looking for leadership. The foreign community, the international community is looking for a strong leader in the United States of America. And unfortunately, they're only getting weak leadership out of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
All right, Barry, final word with you.
What I would say is Paris is right, and I want to put exclamation points behind his last statement. If the American people don't trust our leader because he's not leading, the world doesn't either. If when you look around the world on a foreign policy basis, the world press is making fun of Biden as being incapable of leading his own country, where his numbers have fallen off a cliff. And on an international basis, as you mentioned in your open, when the leadership of Great Britain can't reach the president of the United States for a day and a half, where the president of France goes nuts because he got stabbed in the back, when allies in Afghanistan are desperately trying to engage with the United States and we bailed on them, oh boy, the next 3 years are not going to be pretty if his leadership continues to be reading from a teleprompter and then leaving the room. That's not leadership. He's just occupying space.
Ooh, sharp criticism from Barry and Paris on the president's performance. Gentlemen, thank you.